Let's go over the next steps. First of all, this is step 2 in the process, and one of the most important things is music. And today I've got, I believe it's Chasing Steel, which is a bluegrass band out of Minnesota, a bunch of guys who chase steelhead, which sometimes just gets you in the mood when you're doing a steelhead fly. But music is important, and it could be rock and roll, it could be a number of anything. So next thing I want to show you kind of is some of the tools I use real quick. So let me get this paper out of the way. Here's my brush collection. I mostly use White Sable by Robert Simmons. Flats, rounds, and a rigger. This is one of my favorite brushes. This is just a pure bristle brush that's just been beat to heck, but makes some excellent marks on the paper, especially when you're doing dubbed bodies. It just makes a really interesting mark, which I really like. I use a couple buckets of water, towel. I have Kleenex handy for moisture control on the brush. So if I need more pigment, I'll dab that onto the brush. My palette, I always have a knife, some razor blades, some old cards for scraping. My basic palette, blacks, blue, purple, reds, basic colors. So that's the palette. I also have a cellulose sponge that I use to dab the excess moisture out of my brush. And the first step in the process, what I'll do sometimes is I'll just take a blank piece of paper and I'll just apply paint to it, especially if I'm just going to use gouache over the top or some watercolor. Sometimes I'll draw a bit of the fly in, and for some areas that I want to preserve white paper. But then a lot of times I'll just start making some sheets. I'll just make cool sheets with cool colors or a warm sheet, and then I'll just come back and whatever the pattern is or the color, I'll lay a fly in. Like one of my favorite color combinations is a complementary color combination, which is blues and orange, because it really makes the orange pop. Similar to this fly that was done with this blue background, and these orange just really make the fly pop up. So let's just go through making a sheet. So that's the next step in the process. What I do with watercolor paper, the first thing I do is I wet it thoroughly. Watercolor paper, and this is Arch's 140 pound, has a sizing in it. Some people just start painting. I like to wet it down so I get a nice flow of the color, especially for what we're doing here. So I wet this thoroughly. Wet it up really good. Just pour water on it. You get water everywhere, it doesn't matter. That's what the studio's for. Get it on one side, and I just soak this. And what will happen is the paper will expand. And then what it'll do is, after it's done expanding, I'll use some bulldog clips to keep it in place and actually end up with a really nice flat piece of paper when you're done. If it gets crinkled up, it's not a big deal, but this is just the way I like to do it. So this gets the sizing out, gets the paper to expand. I think I'm going to do this more of a warm color. Or no, actually, I think I'll go cool. So we're going to use some blues. So I'm just mixing up some blues here in a palette off to the side. And I'm just going to start adding some blue into this. Different color blues. Take out some of the moisture. Now I'll use a phthalo blue, which is more of a green blue. The other blue I had on there was an ultramarine, which is actually a purple blue, red blue actually. You can maybe see the difference on the video. See how the water makes it blossoms and makes some interesting patterns. I'm just throwing some color down. Now if I throw a little Indian yellow into the mix, down here at the bottom, we'll get a green, just to change it up, keep it interesting. Let's throw some more of this in here. Try and get a little bit darker on this side. Some interesting patterns. Well, let's add a little bit more. I don't want too much of one in here. Just don't want 50-50 as far as color, but it mostly cool. And I look at my colors as the blue is like a blue with green in it, or the blue with a little bit of red in it. I learned that from color theory from Tony Couch, and for some reason it just kind of hit with me. Other people have different theories of color, and but this one just happens to work for me, so I kind of stick with it. I added a little bit of alizarin crimson actually to that blue, to the ultramarine, give it that a little more purple look. Go a little darker on the side. So I'll just kind of let this run. The other tool I have is an old Windex bottle, and I like it because the dots I get from it are real random and erratic. And I'll wait till the sheen runs off of this a bit, and then what I'm going to do, I'll just do it right now so you can see the effect. I get a little droplet effect on there, and it kind of creates a little bit of texture to the paper. Then the other thing I will do is, if I would put the actual fly in here that I know I'm going to paint, sometimes I will scrape out some of the paint using a blade. And now I don't know what I'm going to put on this paper, but I may put something on here, but these will all run together because the paper's really wet, and it'll all close back in. But that's a way to get some added texture, and I'll do that with hackle or tails. But that is the next step, or step 2. Stay tuned for the next. I'm kind of letting that dry a little bit. I'm just kind of watching it, and there I'm going to hit some couple more dots on here, and it just kind of spits the dots out. Now it's been long enough. I will take these bulldog clips after about 5 minutes or so, and I just clip these onto the corners. Paper is fully expanded. What'll happen is it'll dry, and it'll be nice and flat when I'm ready to paint on it. Sometimes I'll take a blow dryer to it and dry it. Also, the board I'm using here is a piece of treated masonite, and I've got a number of sizes that I use when I do this. One of the other things I'll add sometimes, once it's a little drier, the paper, it's kind of wet right now. It might not show up real well. But I will throw some splatters on there just for a little bit of interest. You can see a couple of them in here, and that's where this really tatty brush comes in handy. So I get some water on it, load it up. You can see, here's my palette. I keep the warm colors on the right side and the cool colors on the left side. So I'll just throw some paint on there. We'll see what happens to it. I just kind of let it go, do its thing. I can move this around, and I'll throw more spatters on it when it's dry. If I don't like it, the other thing I can do is I've got a, it's called a hake brush, and if it's just damp, you can kind of smooth some things out. If you didn't like something, just kind of smooth it out, and boom, you can kind of see these marks I did here into the paper, which is fine. When I go over the top of it, you may see them, you may not. Just add some interest. So